Hi everyone! Happy Friday evening. And it is still Allergy Awareness Week. So we're here before the end of the week and we're going to be going live with Dr. Costa, children's allergy, who's going to talk about food allergies. And he's going to bust some myths. So make sure you stay. He's going to join us in perhaps 1 or 2 minutes. I'm Nishti, I'm a specialist dietitian for children and parents, and I'm so excited to be busting some food allergy myths. And I can see we've got lots of people joining us already. It's great. We didn't think there was going to be any people joining us, and hopefully you'll stay and listening to what Dr. Costa has to say when he joins us. We have had so many questions come through, so we're going to bust these myths. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask away. Hi, Soulful Allergy Journey. Hi, Nikki. Hi, Arden and Olive. Hi, Allergy Awareness UK. And hi, Han. So great to have you here. Hi, Proper Plan Nutrition. Woo! Friday night. Here we come. Oh, how life has changed. Hi. So good to have you here. And, you know, Dr. Costa will be, he's obviously a consultant. He's always bang on time, you know. I'm always early. Why am I always early? Like, I wish I could be, like, fashionably late. I'm never fashionably late. I'm always early. Hi. Thanks for joining, everyone. And here he is. So he's going to join us now. Here we go. Here we are. Hi, Dr. Costa.
Hi, Nishti. How are you?
Great. We've got so many people on already. And, you know, we didn't think there was going to be anyone on a Friday night. So I think people are keen to ask you questions as usual.
Definitely.
But I think, you know, everyone who's here online, make sure you ask your questions. But I'm also gonna, because people have asked, have commented, so we're gonna pick out those questions first because it's Allergy Awareness Week and we want to bust some myths. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So
And I think it is important, that one, because we should here talk about, because normally people ask us questions about allergy here, allergy there, symptoms and this and that and the other. And I thought that probably the best thing to do today is, and as you know, I'm a bit about myth busting, and anyone that has listened or heard from either a healthcare professional in primary, secondary, or tertiary care, a friend online, whatever it is, and they think this doesn't seem like the right advice, just ask us, and we will address it, because you know the number of them that I listen from, the parents that come to me, or sometimes from my patients, sometimes it's stunning. I look at them and I actually don't know what to say. So I think it's a good idea to talk about those.
yeah, no, definitely. And you are obviously, you speak to patients every day and you're busting myths every day anyway. So we've got, I think, about 5 or 6 that we're going to bust today. And as I said, everyone who's joining us, make sure you ask away with your allergy questions. So question number 1. Can you test the food allergy by rubbing it on the skin?
Okay. That is a very common one. And I've heard, sadly, people from healthcare professionals from all sorts of levels, and some of them with a lot of knowledge that shouldn't say that. So the evidence says no, you can't. And why is this? And actually, interestingly, because recently you talked about contact dermatitis, and there's a post of mine on Instagram about contact dermatitis. And fortunately, I was invited recently by a newspaper to talk about that as well. So a lot of things can cause hives when you get in contact with the skin. And that does not mean necessarily that you are allergic to it. And very often we think more about things like poison ivy, poison oak, and so on and so forth. And there's plenty of them. So does it mean that you are allergic to them? Actually not. It means that you have a contact reaction, your skin has not tolerated that, and you have the development of hives and redness. Another very good example, and if you're not talking about the foods, and we'll address foods in a second, imagine this. How many have noticed that when they sit down on freshly cut grass, the areas of skin that get in contact with the grass develop hives or become very itchy. And then when they go and have skin prick tests for grass pollens, the test is negative and they wonder, so why is it that I sat on the grass and I had a reaction, but actually I don't have a pollen allergy? It's because of that. So rubbing anything at all, especially in this case food, will not show if you're allergic. And actually there's quite a lot of evidence around there that says it can go always. You can have someone that has a food allergy and you rub the food on the skin, can develop hives. You have people that have a food allergy and you rub that stuff on their skin and they will not develop hives. And more interestingly, you're going to have a lot of people that do not have any food allergies. And if you rub that food on their skin, they will develop hives. So as you can see, it's almost like if you can get a coin with three sides, is flipping it and see what comes out. So no, do not trust rubbing the food on the skin. That is going to be a sign of being or not allergic to something.
That includes rubbing it like right there.
So the main thing is the only exception will be around the lips. If they rub on the lips and it is and there's a development of redness or swelling, different thing, because then the absorption is going to be quite different from the one that is on the skin, because it is the process of the cells that are involved in the reaction here.
How
and that is why
how about close to the lips, Dr. Costa?
Just the lip.
So
normally we say bottom lip because it's easy. It's easier than the top lip. So bottom lip. So the bottom lip, if you rub it on the bottom lip and there's redness or hives, that is a sign of a food allergy. Okay. But if it is not, if it is the face or the hand or the arm or whatever, no, forget about that. And actually sometimes, even when you do food challenges, sometimes you just start with that. Rub it on the bottom lip and see what happens.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So we have some questions that have come through. We'll just answer those, and then we're going to move to some of the other myths. So, what do you think? Should we do that? Because
yeah, go ahead.
Questions.
Yes, of course.
R. Renard says, Alex, 2 blood tests for kids. Is it good for ruling out nut allergies / intolerances for a 7-year-old? Okay,
so that is a tricky one. The problem about blood tests is that, so intolerances, no, that is a straight no. And people need to understand that an intolerance is large bowel and out. So anything that goes down south. So no. So there is no test for intolerances, despite, and again, myth busting. Despite you go online and you find, I don't know how many companies, and they can test for intolerances. No, they cannot. No, they cannot. Sadly, they still do it. Now, but a blood test, they bring a lot of false positives. The blood test that I like to do is a very specific blood test, in which we spoke about that before. I like to do something called component resolved diagnostics. And in that case, it's very specific because I look at individual proteins in a food. And that individual protein in the food can give me a lot of information. But now, a generalized or general blood test for allergies, I wouldn't do it. Again, brings a lot of false positives, so I wouldn't do it.
I hope that answers your questions. Your question. Please feel free to ask any further questions. Thank you, Dr. Costa. And then we have Lucy, who says, our daughter Olivia has non-IgE mediated allergies to dairy, soya, and wheat. We have no dietetic advice, weaning, etc. We started her on the wheat ladder and she started wheezing. So I stopped. Thanks.
Okay, so this one is more of a dedicated one, so it's not so much about myth busting. That one you should speak to a dietitian or an allergist and address that one.
Yeah, that definitely needs further exploration, Lucy.
Yeah.
Your name rings a bell to me. Maybe you've texted us or messaged us before. Feel free to message. Okay, now feel free to ask Dr. Costa any questions, or me if you like. So we have got another one here.
Okay.
You need to eat nuts several times before you can have tests done.
Oh, this is another common one that very often. This even actually even this week I had a patient that came to me because, and it was actually, I read the letter, it was black and white there, that they refused, whoever it is, so I'm not going to mention if it was primary or secondary care, but it was a healthcare professional, a doctor, that refused to make a referral for that child to be seen in the allergy clinic because that person said that you need to be exposed several times to the allergen for a skin prick test to be positive. Not really. Mainly because there's a lot of variables that we are not considering here. Most times, most of us and most children will develop a sensitization to a food, not because they have eaten it, but because the food has gone in contact with their skin. And if you imagine, especially on babies, how often you have a baby, you are eating, you pick up the baby, you're going to do something, and as you do that, you'll have whatever that you're eating at that time, either in your hands or in your face, and you got in contact with the baby, and that sensitization through the skin is the first exposure. So a lot of sensitizations in children, and especially, and this is more worrying on children that have eczema, will get that sensitization that way. So we would need to be in a perfect world in which someone didn't never had any contact through the skin with an allergen and solely by mouth. Of course, if it was just that case, then by mouth, what would happen is, yes, the child would need 2 or 3 exposures to the allergen by mouth for the test to be done. Now, how often are you going to see that? Not very often. How often are you going to have foods that the child has already eaten? Things that you buy in the supermarket, and especially as you are weaning a child, or many people go and buy a pot of this or that, or a small carton with food, and there's a lot of things that are going to be mixed there. So sometimes you don't even know that you have already exposed a child to whatever allergen several times because until most parents, until they have their child having an allergy, they will not read the ingredients and they will just give the food. So you don't know. So simply refusing to test or to refer a child because of that, no, you can't. You cannot do that. So do skin prick tests. Skin prick tests can be done at any time, at any age. Although, probably below 4 months of age is going to be a tricky one, except probably milk and soya, because it's the main thing that they're having. To test for other things below that is going to be a tricky one. But otherwise, no, any age, even if the child has not knowingly been exposed to the food 2 or 3 or 20 times or whatever they demand, no, skin prick test can be done. Again, skin prick test, not blood test.
Not blood test. Thank you so much. I'm just checking to see if there are any questions. Thank you to everyone who's online. We've got lots of people joining us. I can see some familiar names. If you have any questions, this is your time. Happy Friday evening, Allergy Awareness Week, and we are here to answer your questions. We've had some questions through for busting a few myths, so I'll just go on with those if no one comes through more questions. So, so how about can I eat peanuts on an airplane? Do I have to worry about anyone else with a peanut allergy?
That is one that has given me many, many headaches throughout the years, and it has led me to arguments with staff in airlines, doctors in airlines when I wrote to them. because all of them, how many of you have gone into a plane and you've heard that there's someone severely allergic to whatever it is, being it a peanut or something else, and we would advise not to bring peanuts into the plane because that person might have an allergic reaction. So, no, that does not happen. It is an ongoing myth, and the main reason for this ongoing myth to carry on, and sadly, again, this is not a day for me to mention anyone, but sadly, there are organizations that are being have been doing an amazing job when it comes to promoting the awareness of allergies and to promote the development of new guidance into allergies that keep on supporting that wrong information. And this despite much research being done that shows exactly the opposite. So food in general, it is not airborne. None. Doesn't matter what you talk about, food is not airborne. I can be eating peanuts and someone that is significantly allergic to peanuts be 1 meter away from me, that will not cause an allergic reaction to that person. And the evidence that has been done, probably one of the most interesting pieces of research that was done was this team that went into an empty airplane and they put some of the guys in the team eating peanuts. And a few of them went with a detector, which is a small detector, near the air vents to try and see if they could catch any allergen anywhere in the plane. They couldn't. Then they proceeded to do something more, which put the airplane filled with people eating all sorts of things. And again, they went to air vents around the airplane and tested to see if there was anything at all allergen-wise, especially peanut, that they could detect from a full airplane. Nothing was detected. Then what they did go and do, they went to swab the surfaces around the airplane. And as they swabbed the surfaces of the airplane and they tested for the individual proteins in existence in peanut, they found especially the major protein in peanut, it's called RH2, was throughout the plane. And so why was this? The reason being, people from previous flights that were eating peanuts there, as they're eating peanuts, they touch everything around. So there's that protein transfer and the protein is left on surfaces. And when someone on the next flight, or sometimes 2 or 3 flights afterwards, goes and sit on the same place that person was sitting, what is going to happen is they'll touch a surface, they'll touch themselves, they transfer the protein, and they will have an allergic reaction. Okay, now the ones that say that they have developed an allergy when someone was sitting there, and I remember a case last year, it came on the news, and sadly the guy was almost crucified about that. A girl said that she had an allergic reaction or anaphylactic reaction because of a guy that was 6 or 8 rows in front of her was eating peanuts. Impossible. Now, what there is in this case is literally the power of suggestion, and again, that has been proven. Stress and significant stress can lead to the release of the same mediators that are released in allergy. And that this has been branded, and I actually love this name, it has been branded something called the plastic rose syndrome. And the reason why it is called the plastic rose syndrome is because of someone that said, and again, I'm not sure if it was in St. Mary's that this test was done, but it was in London, that someone had said that they were so allergic to roses that whenever they saw a rose, they had anaphylaxis. So they placed that person in a corner of a clinic room, and they brought a plastic rose. And as soon as that person got in with a plastic rose, the patient started complaining of having anaphylaxis because of the breathing problems, with significant breathing problems and wheezing. And that just shows what the power of suggestion is. So is someone, especially in the airplanes, that have seen it and then starts having that and developing a reaction? Very likely. But now, if we're going to think about airplanes, have you realized that no one is complaining about people eating food on the underground or on the trains or on the buses? This is the same principle. So why is it that that is not advertised on those? And you're going to see how many millions travel on this on the underground in London every single day.
Yeah.
But yet you don't see allergic reactions except the ones that have touched something. So we need to put this into perspective. The only time that a food allergen become airborne is when you cook with it. So as you cook with it, the vapor will carry the protein, and by inhalation, you can have an allergic reaction. And I have some patients of mine that have an IgE mediated cow's milk protein allergy, and one of them had anaphylaxis when going into a famous branch of cafes, and someone was doing a latte. They took a deep breath, the protein went in, they had anaphylaxis. So that is one of the reasons that this can happen. Apart from that, no. The food is not airborne. The only thing that is airborne is pollens and house dust mites and animal allergens and so on, molds. That is airborne. Apart from that, not. That's why
really good.
That is why we have the group of airborne allergies and we have the group of food allergies and we have other groups. So the airborne allergies, and if you're going to look at the group of airborne allergens, food is not there. So why is that? It's because it is not airborne.
Great, thank you so much. And then we've got a question here from Arden and Olive. Is it true that soya milk can cause an effect on a baby's growth or even hormone growth?
Like that one. Again, another myth-busting one. Okay. No, it doesn't. So soya contains something called phytoestrogens, so very similar to the female hormone estrogens. Now, the people that have most studied this are actually Chinese. The incidence of true lactose intolerance in China is sky high because it's their tradition. There's not a lot of dairy products in their diet. It's mainly focused on soya milk, soya sweets, you name it, they use it in soya. So if soya really affects, and especially it's not a matter of babies' growth, it's a matter of male babies and sexual development is what we're talking about. So if that was the problem, probably China would not have 1.5 or 1.6 billion people. It wouldn't, especially when babies are fed all the time with that. So no, all the studies done didn't show that. There's massive studies done in China. There's a few interesting studies done in the United States as well, focusing not just to the Chinese population, but more interestingly, they made a comparison between local Chinese population, and one of the studies was done in San Francisco. It was the local Chinese population in San Francisco and non-Chinese population as well, with both of them having soya milk. And the difference between one and the other when it comes to growth or sexual development, all that, was negligible. So no, it does not affect it.
Yeah, it's still a myth that I think we bust every week. I mean, I think I bust it every week because parents don't want to feed their children. And sometimes they ask me 3 times because I feel like they're not reassured because it's such a deep-seated myth. And if you can tolerate soya, it's so healthy. Phytoestrogen or phytochemicals as well. It's really rich in antioxidants.
They're amazing.
Protein, I mean, you name it. Rich source of calcium. But anyway, so I hope that answers your question, Arden and Olive.
Have you ever realized, Nishti, that a few years ago, many years ago, the advice was to introduce soya only when children were like 14, many boys, 14 or 15 months old or something. And as time went by, that age has started to reduce until now. The advice is, from 5 or 6 months of age, there's no problem. So, just shows that the evidence is not showing that there's any problems with children.
Exactly. Yeah. So let us know if that answers your question. Then we have Spitz the cat who says, can children suddenly develop allergies/intolerances? My 3-year-old used to have everything without issue, tomato, egg, peanut, nuts. she suddenly started to pooping loose or uniformed poos. So I think here we have to explain allergies versus intolerances.
Yes. So again, as I said at the beginning, anything that goes down south is an intolerance. So we're talking about that. So is a different thing. And then again, oh, this is a good one for you to talk about because this is more of an intolerance and things that connected to dietitians. But it's not so much of a mixed busting.
No.
But it can develop at any age, even adults can have that. Something that we will find before, and then suddenly that can happen.
Yeah.
But so yeah, can develop at any age. Yes, it can.
Intolerance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Or,
like
or what?
IBS,
Or what
IBS
people?
like symptoms.
Yeah. Or what people? Or what people call intolerances, because the true definition of intolerance compared to what it is common knowledge of intolerance is quite different. So sometimes, some people might say, as it was in the old days, yes, it doesn't agree with me. Yeah, can be.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I hope that answers your questions. Feel free, anyone, to ask us any questions. Okay, more myth busting here at Allergy Awareness Week. So bear with me, I can't read my own handwriting, so this is great, isn't it? So is it true that if you have an allergic reaction, the next time the reaction can double?
Oh, okay, nice one. So again, let's see how many variations I've heard so far. I've heard it can double, and this interestingly was I heard one of those from that was told by a consultant in A&E to the parents of a child that attended there with an allergic reaction. I've heard that one. I've heard one that if you have the first reaction and it is mild, the second one is going to be anaphylaxis. That every time that you have an allergic reaction is going to be worse than the previous one. Okay. No, does not happen. That is again a myth. Um, Allergic reactions depending on a lot of factors, but let's look at the most simple ones. An allergic reaction depends on dose and concentration. The higher the dose, the higher the concentration, the worse an allergic reaction can be. So, but that is the main thing. So imagine that the child on the first reaction had a big spoon of whatever. We like to talk about peanuts. Let's talk about peanut butter. It was peanut butter, but the second one, he had just a tip of a teaspoon, or as I've seen sometimes before, children that pick up a peanut and then just lick it. So does that mean that he's going to have a worse reaction than the first one in each had a big spoon? No, it's not. It's going to depend on that. But then, and if you look mainly, start with children and then can go on age-wise. But let's look at other factors that will depress the immune system, which means that then the allergic reaction can be worse. Not sleeping. A child that spent the night not sleeping, and then there's an allergen. That will make things go worse. The second one, a child that has an infection. Doesn't matter what infection it is. Again, depresses the immune system. The allergic reaction is going to be worse. As they grow up and they start to be more physically active, then we're going to start considering other things. Physical exercise, although for the immune system and for the general well-being being so good, actually physical exercise will depress your immune system. And the more strenuous the physical exercise is, the more the immune system is going to be depressed. But this is very transient. And normally we tend to say it tends to be on a period of around 2-4 hours after the physical exercise, but also if the food is involved, if the food involved is eaten in 2 hours before the physical exercise. And this is why when we do physical exercise, we produce a lot of inflammatory markers. Also, our metabolism increases a lot, and the immune system is trying to deal with that. So the immune system becomes slightly depressed and overreactive, and therefore that will lead to a worsening of allergic reaction. Let's continue to go up in ages. Let's go and talk about adults. Smoke and alcohol. will depress the immune system, will lead to worsening of allergic reactions. So we're already talking about 7 different factors affecting an allergic reaction. Let's introduce another one, which is called the ED, or we call it, it means eliciting dose. So basically, is what is your threshold? Is your threshold a teaspoon, a tablespoon, a soup spoon, or half a tub? Because I have a patient that only reacts when she has half a tub of a peanut, of peanut
That's a
butter.
lot.
So everyone has a different eliciting dose. So therefore, the dose that is going to start making a reaction is going to be different from person to person, which means that if you put that in context of all the other 7 conditions that I spoke so far, there's a lot of variability. So that means that second or third allergic reaction can be the same, can be better, can be worse than the first one, or cannot happen at all. So there's so many variabilities. Don't trust that one. The main thing is if your child is allergic to whatever it is, just avoid it and see how it is reaction-wise. If the child is well, give antihistamines, but prepare to call 999 or take the child to A&E. But apart from that, no.
Thank you. That's very, very reassuring to hear. I'm sure most parents are enjoying the talk so far. Give this a like if you're enjoying the talk. So we have more questions. My daughter's recent blood test results showed high IgE levels. What does it mean, and how do I explore further?
Okay, that is a part of myth busting, because very often I have referrals saying that there's high IgE levels, but we didn't find anything at all, so this child must be allergic to something. Actually, not. Total IgE is very unspecific, and is not just related to food allergies. Actually, one of the things that causes more or higher IgE levels is gut worms. So with very high IgE levels, the first thing that I would do in a child is to get a stool sample and look if the child has parasites. So that is the main thing. So it is very unpredictable. Of course, there's a very serious condition associated with very high IgE levels, but that comes with a lot of other symptoms that are not related to allergies at all, and that could cause significantly raised IgE levels. But even eczema raises your IgE levels, and eczema is not an allergy. Eczema, or what we call atopic dermatitis, that is not an allergy, will cause raised IgE levels. So unless if there is an association between eating something and the reaction in which you can test that allergen or those allergens, then I probably wouldn't do much more. And just slightly high IgE levels, even hay fever, sometimes hay fever and the ones that suffer the most can have extremely high IgE levels because of hay fever. So, and it's very, very unreliable as a test. It's good to see, mainly to put in context of all other tests that we have done. And if you do blood tests, and again, we're talking about blood tests, which I rarely do. So if it is in the context of other things, of other conditions, then yes. For instance, I see a lot of patients with what is called spontaneous urticaria, spontaneous angioedema, without any allergies whatsoever.
What does that mean, Dr.
So urticaria, basically hives. So the rashes or nettle rashes. Angioedema is swellings. So, and spontaneous mean it just comes out of the blue. They don't know exactly what is causing it. So a lot of those patients, when I do the total IgE levels, they will come very raised. And some of them have no eczema, have no allergies whatsoever, and they have high levels of IgE. So very unspecific. I wouldn't rely on it unless, if, as I said, there's a correlation between contact with an allergen, being it airborne, so cats, dogs,
I would be
horses.
curious to hear why your daughter had that blood test.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know.
Yeah. So Arden and Olive says, maybe a silly question, but I'm very lost with it all. With cow's milk allergy, can you drink goat's milk? Oh, we've got some posts coming on that soon. But
again, myth busting. Let's talk about that. No,
yeah.
no, 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 and no. So there is first of all, the similarity between cow's milk and goat's milk is around 98%. First of all, now both of them will have the same proteins, casein and whey. The main difference is going to be the content of casein and the content of whey. That will vary from cow's milk to goat's milk. Now, if a child is allergic to a protein in cow's milk that has less expression on goat's milk, probably the symptoms are not going to be as bad. That is the main reason. But until you give the child the milk and the child might or might not have a severe allergic reaction, the thing is avoid it. So in general, we tend to say when there's someone with a cow's milk protein allergy, avoid mammalian milk. So any milk in general. The only milk that is less similar to cow's milk is mare's milk. But for you to find mare's milk, probably going to be a bit on the impossible side. Mare's milk is what? Is 40-something% similar to cow's milk. Less than that, only human milk, which is around 30 odd. So again, no goat milk.
That's it. Thank you so much. And what would be a better alternative? So I'm not sure how old your child is, but obviously if your child is below 1, then it's specialized formulas for cow's milk allergy. If they're above 1, then you can use soya, if they can have soya. And we don't really recommend a nut milk because they're low in calories. So yeah, we would advise on an oat-based milk instead.
And also, I think you were one of the ones that told me that. Also, don't go for organic milks even when they are older. Because, and it's one thing that I went to verify a while ago. In organic milk, sometimes there is no calcium whatsoever, or nearly no calcium.
There is nothing in. We've got a few patients who prefer the organic range because there are no emulsifiers. So if your child's diet, if there is enough calcium and iodine, then okay, fine. But you have to really work with a dietitian if you plan to have organic milk for your dairy allergic child. So great. And she is thanking us. And then is there another one? No, I think I managed to capture all the questions. So thank you for all your questions. Okay, so this is one.
Keep them coming. I like those ones, the interesting ones.
Yeah, keep the questions coming. We love it. We love it. So here's one that's not really related to food, but it's still relevant to allergy. Is there such a thing as a hypoallergenic dog?
Yeah, actually, I've already had to write twice to court regarding that because of separated parents. Because one of them, doesn't matter if it was the father or the mother, decided to have those, and the other one is complaining. So no, not at all. There is no such thing as an hypoallergenic dog or an hypoallergenic pet. No, there's no such a thing. So what happens? Again, let's look at variabilities. And also, now that you're on the subject, let's talk about at the same time now the myth busting connected to this, that the allergies is mainly to hair or fur. No, it's not. Also, it is not. The main allergen in animals is saliva. And as a matter of example of that, if it was the fur, then there's a very, I don't like cats because also I'm allergic to them anyway. But for people that know, there's one cat, was a species of cat called the Sphinx cat that has no fur whatsoever. Actually, it's horrible in my opinion, of course. So if it was due to the fur, how could someone be allergic to a Sphinx cat when they have no fur? It's because it's the saliva that is causing it. Now, what is going to happen is, again, and talking about that, what is it? The Persian cats have a lot of fur, but they will produce slightly less allergen than the other ones. So that has to do with how much allergen an animal is going to produce, but also how much dander they will shed. Some of them will shed less dander than others. Some of them will produce less saliva or less allergen in the saliva than others. And again, as an example, between dogs, if you have the same breed, doesn't matter what breed it is, and you have a male dog and a female dog, the um, the male dog always, doesn't matter what species it is, the male dog will always produce 8 times more allergen than the female dog. So if you are allergic to dogs, you are always going to have more reactions around male dogs than female dogs. So does it mean that the female dog is hypoallergenic? No, it's just a matter of production of allergen. And that is why the most dangerous animal when it comes to allergies that can cause anaphylaxis, and there's lots of reported anaphylaxis to that animal, are horses. Now imagine how much saliva and sweat and then and actually feces. So because the feces will also contain the allergen, how much does a horse produce? So that is the main thing. So hypoallergenic, no, not really. And so in that case, what would be the bigger the horse, the more allergic you are to the horse. It also is not true. It depends again how much allergen the horse is going to produce. So that stuff about being an hypoallergenic pet is another gimmick to sell some type of dogs or cats or whatever it is more than they sell other ones.
Thank you for that. And actually, can I just ask you,
Yeah.
If a child has eczema, would you
Yes.
test for, if they have pets, would you test for pet allergy?
Depends on the symptoms, depends on the age of the child. So if the child is already having symptoms, and normally when they are very young, and pet allergies can start at very young age, when they are very young, the main thing that will affect them is the nose, blocked nose or runny nose, and sometimes red itchy eyes. Not so much in the early ages. I would not see breathing problems. I would see them probably as time goes by, 1.5, 2 years of age, that can be. And sadly, I had a case a while ago in a child that needed to go admitted to intensive care and intubated several times because parents had 14 cats, 15 cats, something like that. So the thing is, you need to put all that into context. And if there are already some reactions and parents are afraid of some reactions there, then I'll test. And when I test, if they have pets, if they have just cats, I'll test always for cats and dogs. If the other way around, I always test for cats and dogs, because sometimes as they go out, they tend to go to the same places and they can carry the protein with them. Just in case that happens, let's test it.
Thank you so much. Are allergies or intolerances related to tick presentation?
Not as far as I know of. The only thing that can be, and there's a bit of evidence around that, is that we know that autistic children, and those ones tend to develop more tics than non-autistic children, tend to have more allergies than the non-autistic ones. But I believe that that has more to do with food aversion. So that is a bit of a myth busting as well. So it's not because there's a deficient gene there. It has more to do that autistic children will not tolerate all sorts of foods or all sorts of textures or all sorts of smells, and therefore they will avoid a lot of foods. And by creating that avoidance since they are very young, this can lead to the development of an allergy, mainly to the food that they have not been eating.
Thank you very much. And that's my cousin, liebe dich auch, cousin. Holly asked, can cat allergies or hay fever cause anaphylaxis in the same way food allergies can?
Yes, I had one. So I'm one of the not many cases that had anaphylaxis to cats.
How did I not know that? And we work together.
There you go. Yes, and that is probably the main reason why I became an allergist. I didn't know what was happening to me. I was young. I was a late teenager, and I had anaphylaxis to cats. And actually, what saved me was because it was winter and I stuck my head out of the window for I don't know how many hours, because the cold air seemed to be the only thing that was helping me. I went to take an antihistamine at the same time, and I spent the night awake. And so I had anaphylaxis, and only later on, as I went to medical school, I realized that. So cats can cause. There is, apart from dogs, male dogs, there is no reported anaphylaxis to dogs. There's plenty reported anaphylaxis to horses. There's a lot of reported anaphylaxis to cats. So yes, it can. But now pollens, no, there's not. Pollens, molds, they do not cause anaphylaxis. There's nothing reported as such.
Thank you so much. Isn't this just a great convo? We are learning so much here.
And you're finding out that they had anaphylaxis.
Yes. How did I not know that? Well, why would we talk about? Well, I guess. Okay. Anyway, we'll save that for another conversation. So Amy says, can you recommend any tests to identify the cause of recurrent spasmodic croup?
Again, let's move on. We're talking about myth busting, so that is not myth busting. Speak with your pediatrician or someone else about that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, I think I've got our myth busting question. Did you have one as well, Dr. Costa?
Oh, there's sometimes like it comes to me so many of them. So. What we're talking about breastfeeding, and that's one of the things that we're talking about, because that is actually a sad one, and probably you've heard more often than I do.
Yeah.
So if a child is allergic to whatever food, do mothers need to stop breastfeeding? That is one that you can answer. Come on, tell us all this.
That, I mean, we hear it at least twice, if not 3 times a week, and it's a bit like goat's milk formula. It's the same thing, being told we're going to goat's milk formula. You can absolutely continue breastfeeding. If your baby has an allergy, you may have to excrete the food allergen. But actually, it's not always that you have to even excrete or stop the food allergen, because some mothers don't secrete the food allergen. So, for example, you have non-secretors of allergens and secretors. So you need to just work with a dietitian, but you can continue breastfeeding.
Oh, absolutely. But also, as you say, not just a matter of being the secretors and non-secretors, you're also going to have, again, the wrong idea that is it a one-to-one expression? So 1 gram of whatever protein in the food is going to be expressed as 1 gram in the breast milk. And that is completely wrong. And as you know, there's a massive variability, again, between mothers, between the allergens, and it can be from 1,000 to 1 or 10,000 to 1. So it is almost like diluted, very, very diluted if it is expressed.
Which is also another, which actually ties in with another myth, which is when you start the milk ladder, you start the milk ladder in the breastfeeding mother, if mother is breastfeeding.
Good one.
And I'm very black and white when it comes to this question. I know it can cause a lot of parental fear, but that's why we're here to support you. And I say to parents, no, you have to go directly to your baby. That is the evidence. It's the best way to do it. So, but we're there to support the mother if she's worried. But doing it through breast milk, no.
I completely agree with you. And sadly, I've had a few mothers that came to me quite sad about what happened to them, because they had that advice about excluding the breastfeeding completely, and as they wanted to reinstate breastfeeding, they couldn't, because the supply has simply gone out, so they couldn't do it. And why is this stuff still being said? And again, a lot by healthcare professionals that say this, well, we don't know why this is done. But now I just thought about another interesting one, which is probably another myth busting. So what about then if a father or a mother has allergies to all sorts of things, and will the child develop or has the same risk of developing allergies like the father or the mother? What do you think?
So obviously, if there's a family history of allergies, there will always be a high risk, isn't it? But that doesn't mean that you test for the food allergens first. You have to try it before you know.
Hmm. So that is another very big myth going around. Because first of all, there is no gene involved. We think that there might be some gene involved, but many tests have been done so far, and there is no gene being identified with food allergies. Now, what is the question behind a family having an allergy, everyone having allergy to the same thing? I've had a few interesting discussions with some of my colleagues in the past in those meetings that we go to. And there's a very interesting theory there, which I actually agree with. Um, the families that are allergic, and again, let's focus on peanuts. Today we're going to blame it on peanuts. No, let's go for cashew.
Milk.
Or milk, or even milk. But so in milk, for instance, families that have an allergy to cow's milk, what will they do? Because the parents, grandparents, or whatever have an allergy to cow's milk, they will not have cow's milk at home. So therefore, the child will not be exposed to cow's milk. And as with other allergens, if you exclude an allergen from a child's diet, the risk of developing an allergy to that allergen is very high. And this is known because I was part of the research many years ago that has proven this. And the research that we did was to find out if so this is a bit of a medical term, so apologies for it, is if a child that was monosensitized, so basically had an allergy or sensitization to just to an allergen, would become polysensitized if the advice was do not give other allergens. So, and we did this research. This was when I was working in St. Thomas, and so we followed children for a period of 1 year and something, and we saw. So we excluded the ones that were not monosensitized at start. So we picked up all the monosensitized ones. We saw what was the advice given, and all the ones that were given the advice of not eating any more nuts, we've kept on following those ones to see what happened afterwards on the second or third appointment. And what we realized is that all of them were sensitized to more and more foods as time went by. So I think that in this case, that idea that there is an allergy running in the family, a food allergy running in the family, has to do with this. So people are afraid they will exclude that allergen from the family, dairy, peanut, cashew, you name it. And because the child is not exposed, they will develop an allergy to that. And that is the main thing. And actually, if you're going to look, and now looks to other pieces of interesting research. Let's look into the LEAP study, for instance, which was the introduction of peanut in early ages, from around 4 months of age, that has proven that if you give that to children before they are 1 year old, and if you keep on exposing them to peanut butter or any other peanut source, it will decrease the incidence of peanut allergy in 70% of children. Okay, so that is a massive piece of research that was done nearly 20 years ago. My son is 15, so probably was around 16 years ago, because I was at St. Thomas's when this was done. So now, interestingly, on that group of children that had peanut being given, a lot of them were from families in which there was a history of peanut allergy. So by that principle, then that child would never tolerate peanut because it was genetically related or whatever you want to call it. And no, they tolerated it. And they kept on eating peanuts. And then you have the leap-on study, which was a few years later. They went to see the same children to see that they were still tolerant to peanuts. And they were. Of course, there was a small percentage that there was not. And the idea was that very likely those ones were the ones that instead of parents keep on giving them peanut butter as it was suggested, because the idea is and the advice is give 2 teaspoons of peanut butter once a week. And we think that some of those did not continue to get the 2 teaspoons once a week until whatever age they were. And that is the reason that then they became sensitized again. Okay, so it's not related. not related at all. So if a father or a mother, and I have many examples of that, if a father or a mother is allergic to whatever, that does not mean that the child is going to develop an allergy to that.
Thank you so much. Kirsty, you are not too late. You can ask away. So Kirsty says she's gutted because she remembered we guys were online, but we're still here, almost 9 o'clock on a Friday evening. Yee!
Yeah.
And proper plant
Myth busting.
Yeah, myth busting. Proper Plant Nutrition says, what a great chat. Can we have more like this? Yes, we will every Friday night. No, I'm joking.
Please no, because at the moment, as you know, I'm so you know that I'm very busy. Fortunately, I'm a very busy person, and now and I don't know if people have seen. There has been a lot of demand from quite a lot of newspapers for me to write articles to them, and I've been interviewed by a few of them quite recently. So sometimes I'm here getting messages from reporters or whatever it is for me to write articles, or sometimes my head seems to that it goes to explode. But I love doing this chat, so whenever we have time, we need to go.
Don't worry, we won't be doing this every Friday, no.
Yeah.
It's my Netflix time Friday evening. I'm like enjoying some Netflix time. Anyway, Holly said, so can anaphylaxis subside without adrenaline or treatment sometimes?
Okay. Interesting. This is one of the ones that I like about the yes or no answer. So when you talk about adrenaline, I think that you're talking about getting an adrenaline from an auto-injector, so either an EpiPen or a Jext. Now, most people don't realize that a lot of allergy sufferers that had anaphylaxis and they did not receive an adrenaline injection, actually they were saved by themselves. And they were saved by themselves because of their own adrenaline production. That is a very, very interesting thing, because we produce adrenaline, and actually we produce a lot of adrenaline. And when we have a stressful condition, we'll produce peaks of adrenaline instantly. And as simple as that's people that like to see horror movies. And actually, there was a study done a long time ago that I saw that one. It was an interesting one. So people that like to see horror movies, when they get scared, just the scare of whatever happened will make a peak of adrenaline. Is the same as the ones people that like to go on those amazing or stupid roller coasters, because I don't tolerate roller coasters at all. But those roller coasters in which you flip and whatever it is, horrendous for me. Yeah, I would spit my guts out. I hate those things. I do other things more terrible. So those ones, whenever they do that, is because of the adrenaline rush. They do it mainly because of the adrenaline rush. So just getting to the tip of the roller coaster when they are expecting to go down, as they go down, peak of adrenaline production. And that is the same that happens on someone that has anaphylaxis. They get a scare and they get a peak of adrenaline production because some of them have this impending doom, the feeling that they're going to die. And there's the fight or flight, the fight or flight response in which you get adrenaline production. And that can lead to them saving themselves because of their adrenaline. So adrenaline in anaphylaxis is always involved, being it internal or external, so endogenous or exogenous. So it's always there involved. So anaphylaxis being resolved solely by antihistamines, no. You will have, you can give the antihistamines, which according to research will not help at all, but it's going to be mainly due to their own adrenaline production.
Thank you so much. Hope that answered your question. Who was it that asked? Holly. Yeah. Thank you, Holly, for your question. And then we've got Kirsty, and I love this question because I can't wait to hear what you have to say to this one. My middle child has a peanut and hazelnut allergy. I'm too scared to try my 9-month-old. Any advice?
As we said on the myth busting, not genetically related. There is studies say that there's a slight increase in probability of around 10 or 15% if siblings have an allergy. But how do I explain this to the parents when they ask me this question in clinic? In everything in medicine, we need to put the decisions on a scale. And that is how I do my decisions about most of the things in medicine, in analogy. I put things on a scale. And what is going to be the most troublesome? Is it going to be more troublesome if you avoid giving the allergen? And the likelihood is, as I explained before, the child will develop a sensitization and an allergy to that food. Or is it more problematic trying a little bit and building up on the amount?
Yeah.
And by doing that, if the child develops an allergic reaction, okay, it's going to be minimal reaction. Give antihistamines, remove the allergen away. If the child is not having an allergic reaction and you can introduce the foods more regularly, you're actually preventing the child from developing an allergy to that. So choose what is going to be worse, giving or not giving. And that is what parents need to decide, make that debate with themselves or with their partners about what risk are they willing to take.
But I think if they understand the risk of, not introducing a food allergen into their child's diet, I think that might be helpful, Kirsty. I think that really does help you to make an informed choice. I think when you have the knowledge, but perhaps some parents don't have the knowledge. So, and we speak to a lot of parents in your situation, Kirsty. So you're definitely not alone with that. So hopefully that was helpful. So I think we still have 10 people with us online on a Friday night.
I just thought about another one. Can I go for another myth-busting one?
Yeah.
Okay, because this is again something just came to my mind because it's something, and it is part of the reason why I was recently interviewed by a few newspapers is I've had a lot of patients coming to me saying that they were told that that child that has a fever, first of all, that the best treatment is antihistamines. No. The second one is there is no treatment for it. There's no cure for it. So myth busting now. So there is, and if you're going to see, it came out today. I haven't published it yet. On the Express came an interview with me about treatment for hay fever. There is treatment for hay fever. Actually, there's treatment for airborne allergens in general: tree pollen, grass pollen, cat, dog, horse, mold, and other animals inclusively. There is treatment. It's called sublingual immunotherapy. The biggest problem here in the country is that the awareness or raising awareness of that has been minimal to none. So, and you have a massive amount of people in this country with hay fever. The incidence of hay fever in the UK is nearly 50%, is 45, 46%. So you have something around 14 million people here in the UK that are hay fever sufferers. And currently, according to one thing called the Brit Registry, is where most, not all yet, but most of the ones that have allergies or are having sublingual immunotherapy are registered there. And the registry says that currently in the UK, there probably are around 2,000 patients only receiving sublingual immunotherapy for a total of around 14 million and something. So there is treatment, is very effective. Everyone reacts slightly differently, so you can be treated if you have. And actually, I have even cats and dogs and horses. I have a few patients being treated for that. Some of them they were a bit more problematic at start than others, but I think that we managed to navigate our way around and find the better way to do it. But yeah, so you can, and this is one that is probably a very important myth busting that needs to go around, and people need to take that to their GP. So the ones that are here that have hay fever, or they have a relative with hay fever or a friend with hay fever, take that to their GPs, saying no, actually there is treatment for that. Although it's going to be a bit of a postcode lottery, depending on the place where you live, to see if you can be treated or not. because not all the hospitals in the country will do it.
Thank you so much. That is, I think, really good to know, because some people really struggle with that. So, and then we have Holly, who says, does introducing something once and then not regularly pose a risk in itself?
Yes, good one. I like that.
That's
yes,
good.
it does. Yes, it does. So, because you first stimulated the immune system by giving an allergen, and then you remove it. And we think that if you don't do that, because while giving it and not having a reaction, the immune system is going to start tolerating it. But by not giving it, or giving it the first time and then stop that, the immune system, the second time or the following time that you're going to give it, the immune system is going to react differently, and very often you're going to see someone that actually can have a quite significant allergic reaction, because people tend to give then the same amount or the same volume that they gave on the previous exposure. And this has happened especially when they are several months without having it, and then they give it again, and then bang. Then there's been quite a few cases in which then they have anaphylaxis to the same dose that they had before. But the lapse between the doses has been so great that has led to this. And that is why I keep on emphasizing to the patients or the parents that I see is, look, this needs to be done regularly, weekly, until they are 6 years old. Because 6 years old is more or less a benchmark. Because what you are allergic to until you are when you are 6 years old, very likely is going to be what you are allergic to throughout your life. But also what you're not allergic to is going to be what you're not going to be allergic to throughout your life. There's a few exceptions, no point in going to that one because they are a bit complicated. There are a few exceptions to this, but in general, that is how it works.
Thank you so much. Hi everyone, we've got some new people join us. It's Allergy Awareness Week, and we are busting some allergy myths.
Yeah, and I see some parents of some of my patients.
Oh,
Ooh,
really? That's
yeah.
great.
Ask me questions.
So we've already been busting some myths. So this recording will be available to watch back, of course. But I think, yeah, I don't have any other questions. I think we did 5 or 6. So if anyone has
here.
Oh, really? Where?
Oh, so it was about shellfish not being introduced yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, shellfish is one food allergen we haven't introduced yet, as we don't have it in our diet.
That is another big risk, is when again goes along with everything that we said, especially the ones that comes in the family. If an allergy runs in the family, again, people just don't eat it for whatever reason. Choice can be personal choice, can be because they don't like it, can be whatever it is. And because they don't do it, they decided they're not going to give it to the child. And again, it's going to be the same risk as we spoke about before. Yeah. But by not giving an allergen, the possibility or the likelihood of developing sensitization and allergy to that allergen is very, very high. But of course, you also need to consider is what is the age appropriate to introduce certain types of foods into a child's diet. And of course, why we say from 4 months of age, eggs and peanuts and tree nuts and so on, and eventually then fish. Shellfish is something that tends to be left for later. And I don't know, what do you tend to advise your patients, Nishti, about shellfish? What age?
We introduce them all as we go along. So whenever we start weaning, we obviously start with egg and peanut butter first, and then we move through all the other food allergens.
But what it comes to, for instance, prawns and what is it? Not lobster. Mussels. Do you have any particular advice regarding that?
No, mussels is just a difficult one. It's just not a part of the diet.
Yeah.
But prawns, I find a lot of families actually, they know the allergens, and prawns they would mash and put into some meals. So we still start young. We still start at the weaning age.
Oh, actually, another myth busting one. Seafood is all the same. There's another one. No, it's not. Seafood is actually divided into many different groups, and that is an interesting one because again, I just good that it comes. Sometimes my brain is still working. So I've had people that have reacted, or a child has reacted to one fish, and they are advised to anything at all that comes from the sea to not give it. No, don't ever do that. If it is allergic to one fish, it will be wise to test for other fishes because, as a rule of thumb, you can divide it into three groups. There's a few more groups or subgroups, but three groups. White fish, which is represented by cod, red oily fish represented by salmon, and red non-oily fish, which is represented by tuna. So you can have allergy to one and not allergy to the others. But also, then you have a few other ones that not so common in the UK, but for me, as I'm Portuguese, it is very common there. So then we have three groups, again, all of them different. We have something called the cephalopods. So things like octopus, cuttlefish, squid belong to a group. Then you have the bivalves, which again, clams, mussels, and so on. All of that belongs to another group. And then you have the crustaceans or decapods, which is, and all of them will be more or less the same, which is crab, lobster, shrimp, prawn, so on. So the ones that have 10 legs. So all of them are different. There is one protein that is similar to all of them, but it is not the most common protein leading to an allergy. So if you are allergic to one fish, test the other ones. But if in your family diet you eat any of the other ones that I spoke about, by all means do it. Because as I said, in Portugal, they are eaten from very young. The main thing is, children under one, or even the toddlers 1 to 2, because some of those things are so chewy, a lot of them don't like it.
Yeah. It's just how, preparing in the right way. So in answer to her question, they should, what would you say? So they haven't introduced shellfish because it's not part of the diet. So
give as any other allergen, give. Because again, think about this. How many people travel and how many go abroad to other countries in which the type of diet there is different than the diet here.
Exactly.
And you're going to be exposed to the diet there. And if you're going, you don't need to go very far. Again, let's go to Mediterranean countries. And again, I think I made a post about that a while ago. The incidence of seafood allergy in Mediterranean countries is far higher than the incidence of seafood allergy here in the UK. And the other area in which seafood allergy is very high and very prevalent is Southeast Asia, because it's part of their diet.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to travel to one of those countries, you very likely are going to be exposed to something. Bear in mind that the risk of cross-contamination when you're going to go to whatever restaurant, because they will be cooking seafood and they will be cooking other things, the risk of cross-contamination is very high. So you don't know if your child is going to have an allergic reaction to something that they've never eaten before. But also, your child, when it gets to teenager and it starts going out with their friends, and they go to Indian, Chinese, whatever it is, restaurant in which there is seafood there, they will be potentially exposed to that. And then what? They're going to have an allergic reaction to that because they were never exposed to. So don't exclude allergens. Introduce all of them.
Yeah, definitely. Then we have a question here. And it says, is it true that my 5-month-old should already show signs of dog allergy? And can that be eczema? Or can that cause eczema, I guess?
Potentially, yes. I would not exclude it. I would test the child.
Yeah.
I would test the child. Because in a 5-month-old, if the dog is very close to the child, because how many people put their child on the floor and the dog lies down next to the child and all that. So But also because it is an airborne allergen, and because the father or the mother are playing with the dog or going to take care of the dog and then will go to the child, there is that transfer of allergen. So we're talking about a continuous exposure to that allergen. And if you're going to go back to the other one, that you need to be exposed 2 or 3 times, in this case, how many times have they been exposed to the dog or to the dog allergen? Far more than that. So there is a potential, yes, that they already have signs, and sometimes the initial signs can be just flare-ups of eczema without anything else. So in cases like this, yes, I'll test.
What if the child has milk and sugar allergy, and those are excluded, and the eczema has improved? Would you still test for dog allergy?
If the eczema has resolved, no. If the eczema has improved, but it is still there, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Then we have Proper Plant Nutrition, who says, can adults develop an allergy from avoiding a certain food long term?
Depends on when they started doing it. So if they only started avoiding the food after they were 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever it is, no. And I have plenty of them that come to me. Even when was it? Yesterday, I had one more or less the same. And because there was that possibility, we've tested. Now, what can happen, and this is an interesting one, is they can develop pollen food syndrome later in life. So they will develop, and this is more to fruits and vegetables, but when I talk about fruits and vegetables, I will include peanuts and tree nuts there as well. If your hay fever or someone's hay fever is becoming much worse, the likelihood of then developing a pollen food syndrome. So basically, when they eat a raw fruit or vegetable, they will have like a tingling sensation on the lips or tongue or so on. That can happen. It can happen at very later age. I have some of my patients, because I also see adults for allergies. I have some of them developing pollen food syndrome when they are 40 odd, 50 odd. So
Yeah.
that can happen. But now a proper allergy after being eating all that, again, unless it were very particular conditions, and that is, well, for women mainly, is one of them, being pregnant. Pregnancy can change your allergic status.
Yes.
That can do. And then the other one, which is, not so nice, is people that have cancer and have chemotherapy, because chemotherapy will wipe out completely your immune system. At that time, yes, you can develop you can develop new allergies, but you can develop also tolerance to things that you're allergic before. So it can go both ways. Again, with pregnancy can also go both ways. So conditions like that, yes.
Thank you so much. Great. I think we are, oh my God, it's almost 9:30.
We have a lot of myth busting. Okay, let's leave a few for some other time, and we can do some other questions about something else in another day. Actually, if people want to suggest another topic, please go ahead, send us a message, and we will consider, and then we can chat one of these days.
Definitely.
Probably next time. I tell you one thing: if it is still a Friday, instead of having my favorite mug with tea, I'll probably have my favorite glass with wine.
Yes, I think so. Why not? Just get comfortable. I'm sure everyone behind the screen are having a glass of wine, and we're here with our water, and
if that is true, I envy them.
So thank you everyone for joining. Have a lovely weekend, and see you all another time.
Thank you for inviting me. Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.